Procedures for using home canned food are a little bit different than for using commercially canned food. And that's the case whether it be a high acid food like fruits or pickles, or whether it be low acid like most vegetables and meats. The process involves taking more time to study the contents of the jar and then some additional cooking in some instances. For instance, let's look at this jar of home canned green beans. The first thing you want to do, no matter what you're looking at, is check the seal. You can press it with your thumb, you can tap it with a spoon or a fork, but you need to make some check to be sure that that seal is still intact. Then look at the outside of the jar. Is there any sign of leakage or any sign of spoilage? Sometimes you'll have a lot of rust on the lid, and that may be an indication that you've had some pinprick holes through here. That may be a sign of spoilage. Then you look at the contents of the jar. Is there any discoloration? If the top part of the jar, for instance, has turned black or darkened, that can be a sign of spoilage. Is the liquid clear, or has it turned cloudy? In some foods, such as high-starch foods, such as potatoes or corn, in some instances, cloudiness is simply part of the game. But with most foods, the liquid should still be clear as it was when you put the food in the jar. There shouldn't be any cloudiness, and if it is cloudy, that may be a sign of microorganism activity producing spoilage. You also are going to want to look for signs of mold. You want to look for any bubbles that are moving that shouldn't be, which are signs, again, of bacterial growth, microorganism activity, producing gases and causing bubbles to go. And sometimes you can actually see those in there. Sometimes it's after you open the jar that you see that activity. The next thing that you're going to want to do is open the jar. And if you, again, examine the bottom of the flat, any discoloration there that you can't explain, you also want to smell the food. What you do not want to do if you're looking at a canned vegetable is taste the food, either with canned vegetables or canned meats, because there, if anything went wrong in the processing, you may have a risk of botulism toxin, and it takes very, very small amounts of botulism toxin to do you very great harm and may actually even kill you. So the step that you do with home canned low acid foods, vegetables and meats, is to make sure you boil them for at least 10 minutes before you taste them. Now when we're talking about boiling, I mean a good rolling boil. You bring it up to a rolling boil and you keep it there, and you don't start the timing until that boiling is started. Now, this will be the case whether you do it on top of the range like this, or if you do it in the microwave oven. It still must boil for 10 minutes, which means that it's not a very efficient way to use your microwave oven. So you should probably do it on top of the range. Now, the 10-minute rule applies for those of us who live at 1,000 feet or less altitude. As you go up in altitude, the temperature of boiling water goes down, and it's going to take you longer to kill the toxin. So for every additional 1,000 feet in altitude, you add 1 minute. So that if you're at 2,000 feet, you're going to boil it for 11 minutes. At 3,000 feet, you're going to boil it for 12 minutes. And then you can use the food itself. Now, using canned food doesn't necessarily mean just dump it in the can, heat it, and serve it, and maybe add a little bacon or onion. We're going to look at what we can do with green beans that may make them a little bit more entertaining. I have about a tablespoon of margarine. You could use some kind of oil, such as olive oil in this, or peanut oil, or just regular cooking oil if you prefer not to use butter or margarine. And to that, I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of minced onion, and we'll let them saute a little bit. Just enough to soften up, and we're going to save time by cutting down on some of the steps here and moving right along. To that, we're also going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. As I said, this is going to be a sauce. We're going to add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of both pepper and salt, and we'll let that cook up well enough. Now, if you're using home canned green beans, you will have cooked them already to get to this stage, so you'll have liquid ready to do this. We're going to use the liquid that we drain off the beans so that we save all the nutrition. Now, one of the concerns with home canned vegetables is often, well, you add this extra 10-minute cooking time, and that's going to really cut down on the quality of the nutritional value of the food, because you're just cooking it to nothing. But remember, with home canned produce, you've already cooked it extensively, whether it be commercial or home process, in that you've had it in a pressure canner at least 240 degrees, maybe 250, for anywhere between 20 minutes to maybe as long as 55 minutes to 90 minutes. Most of the nutritional loss that takes place will take place there, and you won't have substantially more here. And often, if you can find some way, such as this, to use the liquid that came off those beans, you could regain a lot of that nutritional loss. We'll let this come to a boil and then let it simmer for about 1 minute to make sure that the flour is cooked, just as we do any other white sauce or flour type sauce, and then we'll go on with the next step. Once this is cooked for 1 minute, you remove it from the heat for the next two steps, or the next few steps, so that you don't overcook what you have there. Now, what I have here is the original recipe called for light cream, for about 1/4 of a cup of light cream, and I've substituted a evaporated skim milk so that we can cut the fat content of this down. I'm also going to add to this about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard and a tablespoon of regular mustard. So this one may be something that you have to have daring children for if you've got kids in the house. And also to that, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of lemon juice. And we'll stir these together and then simply fold those into the sauce. Blend those well. And then the beans get folded in here. Now, if you've used home canned beans and you got them cooked, you're not going to have to heat this very long because the heating process has already pretty much been done for you. And they just get folded in, and then you need to heat them gently only until they're hot and ready to serve. Now, if you find you've got too much sauce, you can either cut back on the amount of sauce that you make, or you can increase the number of beans that you're stirring in here, either one. So this can probably be stretched quite a ways depending on how much sauce you want left in there. This is what you end up with. Again, something that most people don't associate with green beans, may not be for every day, but it's something a little bit different than what we usually have on the everyday table. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.